Hi, my name is Frank J. Garcia, and this is my analysis of two different students completing my word problems. And here we go. The process I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be reading my problem, discussing how I would solve it, and then we'll jump into both students and see how they solved it. The students being 23 and the other being at a third grade level. Alright, so problem number one. Donatello wins $500 in a contest. He spends $200 the first day. If Don divides his money evenly, how much will he have for the next 4 days? So let's break down what we have. We start off with $500. He spends 200 of that dollar, so that means subtract 200 from 500, which leaves you $300 now. If Don divides his money evenly, how much will he have for the next 4 days? So now we have $300. If you were to divide that by 4 days evenly, you are left with $75 a day. Now let's see how the students conducted it. We're going to start with the first student, the 23-year-old. So right here we see she starts off with 500 minus 200, and you're left with $300. Divide that by 4, which are you left with $75. Simple math for a 23-year-old, and it's all appears here. That's all in her head. The second student we see right here, again 500 minus 200, and you're left with 300, which you see is written right here. Let's go ahead and see if we can zoom in just a tad. 300 is written in here. She writes it in the standard division dividing form. 300 divided by 4. So 4 into 30, you get 7. 28. Subtract 28 from 30, you're left with 2. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 20 minus 20, and you're left with 0. So her final answer was also 75. As you can see, that the clear difference between the two, given that the first student was all mental, whereas the second student felt more comfortable with writing it in the proper form, check the work to see and to find the answer. Let's move to question number 2. Michelangelo wants to buy a new skateboard that costs $50. He spends a week saving $40. How much does Mike need to save to buy a board with 8% tax? Now, this is a little teaser. Some students may overlook the fact that there is now 8% tax on it, considering they would assume that you would start with just the original price of $50. However, you need to multiply 50 by 1.08, which would give you $54, and then you subtract $40 from that, and you're left with $14. One, the reason being multiplied by 1.8 because you're multiplying by itself, and you're multiplied by zero point zero 0.08 of zero point zero 0.08 of $50, which is 8% tax, which is 8%, I should say. Now let's see how the students did it. Going back up to student number 1, the 23-year-old. Again, it looks like it's just pure mental mathematics. She started off with what she knows, wrote down 8% to make so that she remembers that it is 8%. And again, she does come up with the correct answer of $14. Again, all mental mathematics. We go down to student number 2, who wrote down 54 from the get-go, and she proves this knowledge by showing that 8% of $50 is equal to $4. So 54 plus 4 gave her 54, or 50 plus $50 plus $4 gave her $54, and from that she subtracted the $40, which left her with 14, the correct answer as well. Again, we see another difference of showing work as a child versus mentally solving a problem as an adult. considering at adult at the age of 23 you are supposed to know how to solve these problems, and it does not need to be shown. Your work does not need to be shown. All right, let's move to problem number 3. Raphael thinks he can lift 300 pounds. He was he has two 45-pound weights, two 35-pound weights, and four 25-pound weights. How much more weight does Raphael need to get? It was not clearly stated, but you should. But from this problem, you're to know that you need to add up all the weight and subtract it from 300 to see how much weight is left so that he could lift. So he has two 45-pound weights, two 35-pound weights, and four 25-pound weights. So that's 90 plus 70 plus 100. So we are left with 260. 260. From 300, you subtract 260, and you're left with an extra 40 pounds that he needs to add to it to get to 300. Now let's see how the students did it. Of course, we're going to start off with the top. Yep. Just to write it out to get a visual, considering we are dealing with multiple numbers, gives it a nice clean 90 plus 70 plus 100. She added the two odd looking numbers together, and then from that she added the 100. Very simple. And it looks like she also did the subtraction in her head to get the correct answer of 40. And we see here is instead of doing the mental math, the younger student wrote it all out. So we have 45 plus 45 plus 35 plus 35 plus 4 25s. From there, she wrote the correct answer right here, which is 260, and then she subtracted that from 300 to give her, unfortunately, looks like the wrong answer of 160 pounds. This is again, or I think that's supposed to be 140 pounds. This is again why students need to check their work to make sure that they are copying all the correct answers down, because it looks like from here she wrote a 3, however she got confused and thought it was a 4, which gave her the answer of 140 pounds instead. So again, we see that with the young kids, even though they do write all their work down, the uh, smallest error in terms of writing the correct answer or looking at a question wrong could hurt you a lot. Moving on to number 4. Let's move on to number 4. Leonardo runs 5 miles each morning. He's looking to set a new record by running 5 miles in 30 minutes. How fast does Leonardo need to run? From here, we can see that the proper way to do it was to see how fast he would need to run 1 mile. So you take 30 divided by 5 miles, and he would need to run 1 mile in 6 minutes. So from there, how do you get how do you get 60 minutes from 6? You multiply by 10. However, what you ever need to do one side, you do the other. So it's 1 mile for every 6 minutes. Multiply both of that by 10, you get 10 miles for every 60 minutes, or 10 miles for every hour. So he would need to run 10 miles an hour. Now, a little tip here from looking at this, it's 5 miles in 30 minutes. From there, we can see if we multiply by both of them by 2, we would have 10 miles in 60 minutes, or 10 miles an hour, which is also the right answer. Now let's move up to the number 4 over here. So from here, it appears that the 23-year-old student gave up and did not answer the correct answer. From here, we could assume that we are at an age that this type of mathematics is not really important to us anymore. So it could quite possibly be the mentality just of her saying, "My car will tell me." We move on to student number 2. who also unfortunately was not able to solve this problem again as well. Not much to go from here. Unfortunately, neither of them were able to solve the problem, so both of them would have got a mark off on these problems. And to add a quick bonus question at the end, just for the kids to have some fun, it's just a little brain teaser. How can you divide 12 and get 7? Well, most of them would sit there for hours. Divide 12 by 2 divided by anything or divided by a percentage to get 7. Now, the correct way to do this is by using the Roman numeral 12, which is XII. If you were to take a line and draw it straight through the middle, horizontally, you are left with, and scribble out the bottom half, you are left with VII, which is 7. And let's see what the students both did. If we look at the top here, of course this was a bonus problem, so there was really no correct answer for this one. If we could see that the first student came with her own creative way to solve it, and the third grader decided to leave a message. You can't, I don't know, something you divide by 12.
Unless.
Unless you divide by 12. Okay. Well, again, this last problem was for no points. However, it was just a way to get the kids to think outside the box, to try to solve something that they have never seen before, to see how fast to look at it from another angle. And that is my analysis.